All you have to do is want to do it.
Yes.
Want to be it.
Can you set your mind to it? And this is who
the grown men. We have the youth that we need to mentor and we need to inspire and we need to motivate. But I know, as a recent conversation between you and I, that you're also in the business of motivating grown men. Through that, I'm supposed to see God in it at every turn. So me going to the Sea of Galilee was to remind me of that, to refresh myself of that. It is all under control, that He does have it. It's just as clear as that fresh water that I saw.
You're Our Unity, hosted by LeShawn Walker, Tuesday nights, 6 p.m. Guesty.
Welcome, everyone, to You're Our Unity, a show that wishes to spread a spirit of peace and love in the world, one conversation at a time. We want to encourage you to just strive to have a new perspective when you're interacting with different people on a daily basis. Please be kind and considerate and compassionate. Show a little care and concern, because you really don't know who these people are and what special needs and special concerns and care they need from you. I am your host, LeShawn Walker. I'd like to welcome you into another episode of You're Our Unity. Please like, share, and follow. Let everyone know that we're on right now, live from Strong Island Studios. Well, guys, spring has sprung. It is beautiful. It is so pretty outside, though it's still a little chilly for me. A lot of people are outside with their shorts and their t-shirts on, and I'm still looking for my jacket and my boots, but it's springtime, and I hope that you guys are enjoying the beautiful weather. If you are dealing with snow, rain, wherever you are, please, hope you're safe. I hope you're warm, but do get out and enjoy this time of year right now. I feel like summertime is fast approaching, and I'm getting really, really excited about that. As you know, every week we're here at Your Unity are doing something out in the community, celebrating different people and different things that they're doing. We're still in Women's History Month, and this past weekend I was able to participate in an event honoring some amazing women. So this week in Unity in the community, the local Congresswoman, Michelle Solanges, she had an event, the Women of Distinction Award. It is the 10th annual Women of Distinction ceremony. And I was so honored to go and participate. My beautiful friend, Savitri Ferdinand, who is a friend of the show. Her daughter, Celine, is my little co-host when I host the youth edition of the Your Our Unity show. Well, she was honored with the Women of Distinction Award for all that she does in the community. This woman is amazing. She is the PTA president at Dutch Broadway Middle School. She is the Girl Scout leader. She always is giving and serving in so many capacities in her community, and people see it, and she was recognized for it. In addition to her being the president of her daughter's organization, Mirror Empowerment, which is all about empowering the youth in the community, she's out there with the parents as well, empowering them and helping them learn how to serve and learn how to give back. And also, she's a good example of what a strong woman is. She really, truly is the woman of distinction. And I'm so honored to be her friend. I was there attending with her family. Michelle Solanges, obviously, picked some amazing women. There were so many and too many for me to mention, but there we are enjoying. We had a beautiful dinner afterwards. And again, we just highlighted all the wonderful women in the community that are giving back and that are serving and that are doing it selflessly, because that's really what it is. A lot of them don't even consider it a job or that they're doing anything special. They really believe that this is what their heart is leading them to. And so they do it out of the kindness of their heart. And so every last woman that was honored there truly and amazing to me just personified what a woman of distinction is by what they do every day, how their heart was leading them in everything that they do. So it was a great event. I was so happy to be there. I met so many amazing people. One in particular who was also honored is Officer Caggiano. Officer Caggiano was saying how, I just show up every day and I do my job. I didn't think I was doing anything special. I didn't know the community even really recognized me or knew that I was there. I'm just there to serve. And she spoke so passionately about, how she enjoys her job and how she enjoys what she's doing within the community and sharing, what law enforcement and building community with law enforcement so that they can have better relationships. That's really what her goal was. She is the top cop as of 2020. And I just was so happy to see that she didn't look at what she was doing every day as a job. She looked at it as something that she needed to do to make her neighborhood, her community, her town a better place, making it safe, making it some place where people enjoyed having fun, going out, the kids to play, making sure that the people that lived there, the residents, most importantly, felt like they were being heard and that, again, they were safe where they lived. So I was so honored to be amongst these amazing women, especially Officer Caggiano, because she kind of made me realize that we need top cops just like her in our communities all over the world. So I wanted today to talk to another ex-top cop. His name is, and the title of the show is A New Perspective. His name is Tim Sutton, and we're going to be talking to him about just how we can all have a new perspective when we're dealing with people on a daily basis. Tim Sutton is a 33-year veteran law enforcement officer and founder of A Better Understanding, LLC. During his time on the force, Tim implemented the Project Lifesaver program to address the issue of individuals wandering or eloping due to cognitive impairment. In 2011, Tim created A Better Understanding to raise awareness in the area of special populations. He continues to travel the country teaching and presenting on topics such as Alzheimer's disease, autism spectrum disorders, intellectual disabilities, and developmental disabilities. Tim has been deemed a subject matter expert by the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services and the International Association of Chiefs of Police on Alzheimer's as it relates to law enforcement. The Virginia DCJS has also declared him a subject matter expert in the area of autism, intellectual disability as they relate to law enforcement. Tim's goal with A Better Understanding is to highlight and inform on these special topics. To help spread this awareness, Tim developed his own podcast in 2021. The show, A New Perspective, was created to bring attention to those in the disability community who are doing extraordinary things. The show is to educate, entertain, and inform viewers on the amazing abilities of those with disabilities. He is here to share his perspective. Please help me welcome Mr. Tim Sutton. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you for the invite.
No problem. Thank you so much for being here. It is so important.
Yes.
I feel right now for you to be here, especially in the state of the world today and, everything that's going on with, police and communities and things like that. So I'm so happy that you had the time. And I just want to dig right in. Usually before I begin, I know you live in Virginia now and you're also just retired. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank
No
you.
problem.
Thank
How does
you
it
so
feel to
much.
be newly retired?
It's the weight off my shoulders, I can tell you that, especially being a sergeant supervisor and, being in charge of so many other officers.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a weight off my shoulders.
Oh, that's good. Well, I hope that you are enjoying it, taking some time, spending with your family and doing some traveling. But before I begin, I usually ask my guests, tell me a little about your childhood. I know you're in Virginia now. Were you born and raised in Virginia?
Yes, right, just outside of Richmond, Virginia, just in Hanover County, Mechanicsville,
Oh,
if anybody's
wow.
familiar.
Okay.
Just grew up. I had an older brother, 4 years older than I am, Tommy, and it got to the point where I answered to either Tommy or Timmy because everybody got us confused. But no, just mom and dad, just quiet little town. Got through school. My brother was an athlete, and I think everybody expected me to be a big athlete, and I was more of a nerd geek. I was editor of the yearbook my senior
Oh,
year,
wow.
and I was always known as Tommy's little brother.
Mhm.
But graduated from high school, went to James Madison University, got a business degree, and ended up when I graduated, I started working on a master's degree actually at VCU here in Richmond,
Okay.
and started working on an MBA. And I kind of got sick and tired of school and burnt out.
Right.
And a couple of friends of mine had said they applied with a department south of Richmond called the Chesterfield County Police Department, and said I ought to come over there and take a test. And I thought, sure, I could go for a job and a paycheck. So I went over there and tested, and the two of them did not make it through the test. But 6 months later, I found myself standing at a flagpole, getting yelled and screamed at with a bald head, and on the ground doing push-ups because somebody in my squad had answered a question wrong.
Oh,
And I thought, I might do this for a couple years, but I will get it
33.
out of my system and go do something else. And something else turned into 33, 34 years later.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Oh my goodness. So you literally joined law enforcement strictly because of the paycheck? You had no desire earlier to maybe get in the community and serve in that capacity?
I had through college when I was home during the summer, I actually worked at an amusement park here, Kings Dominion, as a security officer.
Okay.
And after the first year in security, they actually had officers who were sworn police officers. We did not carry a sidearm, but on the premises of the amusement park, we had arrest powers.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a cool job during the summer, and you really learned how to interact with people. You didn't have a firearm, you had a nightstick and stuff, and you had the arrest powers, but you really had to learn how to interact and talk to people.
Right.
And it kind of makes it'll give you a good idea whether or not law enforcement may be something you're cut out to do.
Mm-hmm.
But and interestingly enough, in my whole career back then, that was the only location. That was 1988.
Right.
In my career in law enforcement, that's the only time I've ever had a gun pulled on me was inside that park.
Wow.
And I'm like, my goodness.
Yeah.
But they check, they have metal detectors, everything these days. But I just remember those days. And yeah, even after that happened, I said, that'd be a neat job. And
Yeah.
again, I went
Wow.
into it thinking, I'll do a few years and go on and do, get it out of my system.
Right.
But it's a different type of job that you run across so many different people. You run across the richest of the rich, the poorest of the poor, transient individuals, and you see the best of the best and the worst of the worst, obviously, but you have a lot of opportunities to interact and change people's impression, I guess, of law enforcement, because
Right.
there's such a wall that divides law enforcement and the community.
Yeah.
The media doesn't help it. The idiot police officers out there doing things that they shouldn't be doing don't help.
Right.
But that's kind of what you see on the news.
Yeah.
So I looked at every day as just going out, interacting with people, and try to break that wall down and chip away at it
Wow.
to show the other side of law enforcement.
Right. Well, let me ask you, I mean, considering that you said you was probably going to do it only for a few years and then you were going to get out, what kept you in it? Like, what was, the reason why you said, I have to stay in? Was it because you saw everything that was going on that needed to change and you kind of wanted to, spearhead that change, or it just became a bigger paycheck every year?
Yeah, it was a little bit bigger paper, and it was a neat job. I mean, it was very interesting because every single day was different, and it wasn't like going to an office and sitting in a cubicle. Your police car was your office.
Right.
And I did 4 years with the Chesterfield County Police Department, which it was the area I worked was very low income, government subsidized areas, trailer parks and stuff, and stuff I've never been exposed to.
Right.
But I got to see a different part of society. And then I decided, I want to come back to where I grew up. We had a sheriff's office here, And I just put the application in and ended up getting hired. And so I ended up going with the county where I grew up. And it was interesting back then. I had gone from a jurisdiction where we probably had about 40 or 50 officers in the whole county working,
Right.
to working for a sheriff's office where I worked midnight shift, and we would work with 4 deputies, just
Wow.
4. So that's another aspect of, when I worked for Chesterfield, you knew when you pulled a car over that all you had to do was look in your rearview mirror and you'd see another set of blue lights pulling up.
Wow.
But working where I was working now, or just retired from, your backup was a good 25, 30 minutes away.
Wow. How
So
was
you really had to know how to talk to people, to de-escalate
situations?
situations.
That's what I
And
was going to ask
and I
you.
also had to learn how to get cows out of the road and skunks out of houses and things like that. And you're wondering, what in the world is this job all about? But yeah, it was, and the county grew. I did
Right.
2 years out here on midnights, and then I went to a plainclothes unit, street crimes unit, where I had long hair, beard, and everything, and
Tim,
wore plain clothes. And we did surveillances.
Tim, let me ask you, how
Yeah.
was it working in the community, the underserved community? What challenges did you see? I mean, considering that you're saying that your backup was for like 20, 30 minutes away, how was it working in those circumstances in those neighborhoods?
It was unique because the first 4 years of my career, I remember being in a lot of situations in apartment complexes, and you would end up having to arrest somebody, and you're trying to get them in the car, and then next thing you know, the apartments unload and everybody comes out and they're surrounding your police car.
Wow.
And it's like, all right, let's get out, get him or her in the car. Let's get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I came to Hanover County, where I am, or just retired from, I was with my training officer. They had me ride with one of the experienced officers in the county, just so I could figure out how things worked in the county. And I remember he and I, we'd known each other a while, but he's supposed to be training me. And we went to a house. It was about 3 or 4 houses in a row. It was all family, and they had a big party.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the individuals got so drunk, started busting the windshields out of cars.
Mm.
And he and I pulled up, and they said, yeah, he just went around the house. Okay. So we went around different directions, and we stopped him and placed him. He was drunk as he could be. So we locked him up for drunk in public.
Right.
And I'm thinking, now we've got to walk him back through all of these family members. And it was probably about 25, 30 of them. And I think this is going to be a mess.
Wow.
So we started walking up the hill, and they're all standing there, and they're telling him, hey, you just do what the officers say. We'll come pick you up in the morning.
Mm.
And I'm like, is it normally like this out here? So it was a culture shock. But people respected the officers, the deputies in the county.
Right.
It was so different than anything I had ever seen.
Wow.
And you go up to them and thank you for the way you handled when we brought your brother or whatever. Appreciate you handling it that way, because they could have surrounded us, and then we could have been calling for help or whatever. But they had a respect. So there's some really good people out there, but something like that's not what you're going to see on the news.
True. You're right.
They're going to show the bad stuff on the news.
No, you're right.
There's so many good things being done by officers. And I've even reached out to the media. Hey, we're doing this event, whatever. Why don't y'all come do a story on it? And you don't hear from them. But you have an officer go out there and do something stupid. Everybody sees that officer and assumes we're all exactly just like that officer.
Of course. Yep. They want to see the conflict. They want to see, they want to be entertained, basically.
Right.
Everyone wants to be entertained now. And it's sad that, it's the bad things that occur, the sad things that occur that people gravitate towards too, instead of those feel good, kind stories that we should be spreading and sharing with everyone. Well, let me ask you, I know that you said that you've interacted with so many different people during your time as an officer. And I also know that you're an advocate for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities because of, the interactions with law enforcement and what you've seen throughout the years. So tell me, how did you get involved in creating programs and teaching other officers how to de-escalate situations, not knowing, who you're dealing with, and how passionate are you about it?
Yeah, it was interesting because I was actually on a podcast with a young man out he's up in Connecticut, but I think it was in California actually Sunday.
Mhm.
And he had asked me all about that. How in the world did you get? Is this something that you had been interested in when you started being a police
Right.
officer? What did you know about it? You know, when you started or first few years of law enforcement. And to be honest with you, I knew nothing about any autism, IDDD, Alzheimer's, dementia. I got promoted to sergeant in 1999, and I worked evening shift, and I was supervising the deputies in the county. And in 2002, the sheriff at the time came up to me and he said, "Hey, I want you to run a program." And I said, "Okay, well, what is it?" "Oh, I don't know. It helps you find missing people."
Okay.
Okay. So it was about 15 of us went through a 3-day training. There are a few different systems out there, tracking systems that out there available to the public to help deal with the wandering elopement. But this was Project Lifesaver.
Mhm.
Anybody can look them up, projectlifesaver.org. It's a nonprofit. But we went through the training and we learned how to do all the tracking. What you do is go out and meet families who have a loved one who wanders off and gets away. And you put a little wrist size transmitter on their wrist
Right.
or their ankle. And it works on radio frequency. So it's not a GPS tracking them all the time. But when the caregiver realizes they're gone, they call 911 and my team would come out. We could search and bring them home safely.
Right.
So I went out to start meeting families. I got a little education during Project Lifesaver training about autism and Alzheimer's. Went out and started to meet the families. And the first young man, you've got a picture you showed in the beginning with me and Matthew Frank. Our faces are right there side by side. I think he's got my hat on.
Aw.
He was 6 years old, non-speaking. He could say a couple words,
Mhm.
but for the most part, nonverbal.
Right.
And he had a twin brother, Tyler, who was in a wheelchair. So he really wasn't a flight risk.
Right.
But when I went over to meet the family and got out of my car and I went in, the first thing Matthew did is walk up and put his hand on my weapon.
Oh, wow.
And me and the parents are saying, "No, Matthew, don't do that. Don't do that." Well, a few minutes later, he comes up and he starts to lean against it
Mm.
because he wanted to be in contact with that weapon.
Right.
And we kept trying to reinforce, no, Matthew, don't do that. Don't do that. Well, I was sitting at the kitchen table talking to mom and dad, and I felt something underneath my chair, and I looked down, and Matthew was laying on his back on the floor, and he had his finger up the barrel of my weapon. And, I left there and I thought, with autism specifically,
Right.
if there's not an underlying circumstance, those individuals do not look any different than anybody else. It's pretty much an invisible disability.
Yeah.
Same as, people who are vision impaired, hearing impaired, they're invisible disabilities.
Yes.
Somebody with Down syndrome, if you walk up, you could tell something is a little bit different.
Right.
But my thought was, with Matthew not looking any different than any other child, let's bump the calendar up 20, 25 years. And I'm standing in a convenience store in uniform, and Matthew comes through the door with somebody and runs over to me and puts his hands on my weapon, grabs my weapon. As a law enforcement officer, what am I to think?
Yeah.
My mind goes first, okay, somebody's trying to take my weapon. They're trying to assault law enforcement. And I said, that's got to be scary for parents.
Yeah.
Wondering later on in life, what happens if they're out in public and I'm not there?
Right.
And there are studies out there to show that individuals with autism are 7 times more likely to have an encounter with law enforcement than a neurotypical individual.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as I was like, this really fascinated me and I wanted to learn more. The Alzheimer's aspect really opened my eyes. The first gentleman with Alzheimer's I met, his wife had called because he had wandered off. And I remember sitting down with them to fill out the paperwork. And Kenneth is his first name. He would sit there, he said, "You ever play golf?" And I said, "Well, no, sir." I said, I've got twin girls. I said, "I'm in the process of buying twice as many diapers as the average person." And he's like, "Oh, really?" He said, "Oh, I love playing golf." He said, "Do you have any children?" I said, "Yes, sir. I've got a son and I've got twin girls." "Oh, well, golf is one of my favorite things. Do you ever play golf?" And I'm like, "No, sir." I said, I said, "That's a rich man's sport." I said, I haven't had an opportunity to play any golf." He said, "Wow. What about kids?" He goes, "Have you got any children?"
Wow.
And it was an hour of that.
Yeah.
And the wife kept apologizing.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm here for an hour.
Yeah.
I can handle it. I said, but she's here 24 hours a day being asked the same questions over and over and over again.
Yes.
So I did what I could, and I would look for classes here in Virginia. I think Department of Criminal Justice, they had a class, 2-day class on Alzheimer's and dementia. And I
Right.
started going to that class. And anytime it came anywhere near, I would put in to go. I don't think my administration knew I was going to the same class over and over and over again. But every time you go, you learn something different.
Yes, true. Yeah.
So eventually I got called by Department of Criminal Justice Services, and they said, hey, we'd like you to help us teach some of this.
Wow.
I would love to. And at that point, I had never really stood in front of a crowd talking,
Right.
and I was scared to death to do it. But after doing it a few times and being scared to death, the more you do it, the more used you get. And I'm sure the first time you did your show,
Yes, I was just about to say that. Yep.
it was nerve wracking. But it got to the point where it didn't faze me anymore. And I started traveling around the state, teaching that and teaching autism. And it was interesting because I was going all around, even outside the state, teaching.
Wow.
And our new sheriff took over in 2011. And he and I were talking, and he said, I'm glad we've been training our agency all along. And I said, well, no, sir, I've never been asked to train our agency.
Wow. That is something.
I want them trained. I said, I will put the curriculum together and be glad to do it. So 2011, we started training Hanover County Sheriff's Office. Right. Every deputy comes to the academy.
Wow.
Gets a 4-hour block of autism, 4-hour block of Alzheimer's.
I love it.
And then I was traveling, teaching the Alzheimer's stuff, and I kept telling the Department of Criminal Justice, you need autism.
Yeah.
You need autism class. You need it. And a few years went by, and I finally got approached by a lady who came to my Alzheimer's class. She walked up at the first break and said, I was told I needed to hear you teach. I need your help. And I said, what do you need? She said, they want me to help develop an autism curriculum. I said, nice. Absolutely. So we had attorneys, fire, EMS come in, and we put together a curriculum and traveled a few years teaching that curriculum throughout Virginia.
Right.
And then I had my consulting business. When the money would run out from the Department of Criminal Justice or International Association of Chiefs of Police, I would get calls myself. Mm-hmm. And I've got a gentleman in Texas who's a retired lieutenant from down in Louisiana, I believe it is. Right. And he will hook up and we'll go teach Alzheimer's, and I'm trying to train him up on autism as well. But we had the opportunity a few years ago to go to Atlanta, down to the Georgia Bureau of Investigations. And they called, said, we'd like to have a class. Can you do an all-day class on Alzheimer's? Sure. Wow. And it was interesting as we got closer, they said, oh, well, can you do 6 hours instead of 8? Okay. They said, look, the governor's going to be there. The attorney general's going to be there.
Wow.
Okay. Well, we found out that the governor at the time, his wife's mom had Alzheimer's, and they were the primary caregiver.
Wow. So what did you actually learn? You're giving these classes, but you went to quite a few classes in the beginning. So right. What were you learning? What did you find interesting, and what made you keep going back to see what other information you can gain?
Well, on the autism realm, I came to realize how smart people with autism are. Mm. They may not be able to speak. They may have social challenges. The 3 areas of social challenges, social interaction challenges, communication challenges, and usually a repetitive behavior right. challenge.
Right.
You see a lot of them stemming, where they're flapping their hands or doing this. But understanding that they are absolutely brilliant. Yeah. And these social skills, and they may have difficult time making friends and things like that, right. Interacting with anybody, and they're always looked at a lot of times, because I remember in high school where you had some kids in school, you'd see them at homeroom, but the rest of the day you never knew where they went.
Exactly. Yeah.
And started to realize that these are the kids that don't have any friends. Mm-hmm. Yeah. These are the kids that invite people to their birthday party,
and nobody
they don't show up.
Yeah.
And they never get invited to other parties. And that really hit me. But I also thought about how easy it would be to misinterpret a behavior by somebody, such as Matthew coming up and putting his hand on my weapon. Mm-hmm. I started to learn how the autism is sensory driven. All your senses are challenged.
Right.
You may have somebody who is hypotonic, hyposensitive to touch, where you could go up to them and grab their arm, or they could have their arm half hanging off, cut open, and they don't feel the pain.
Right.
They need medical attention, but they don't feel the pain. And then you've got others, and I met tons of them, that if you went up and just lightly touched them, it would feel like razor blades cutting through their skin.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought, okay, well, if Matthew had that problem, he grabs my gun, I grab his arm, and if it felt like razor blades cutting through his skin,
Yeah.
anybody's going to react and try to get away. So, but my brain's reverting back to my training. Okay, now he's resisting arrest. Now I've got a fight on my hands, this and that. And with autism, they're very strong.
Right.
And you wonder you talk about sometimes they have meltdowns. If a routine gets broken or something doesn't go exactly as planned, they will have a meltdown. And then realizing that the part of your brain that controls what you do if you get startled, scared, your fight, flight, or freeze,
Yep.
is called the amygdala.
Right.
And many times with autism, it's enlarged.
Mm.
So something happens to startle them or change, you will get a catastrophic reaction from them. And there
Right.
have been documented cases where the amygdala is actually 4 times larger than normal.
Wow.
So that's why they'll have these meltdowns. And it's like you think the world's coming to an end just because they didn't have pizza for Thursday night for dinner. You know, and just realizing, law enforcement, we're the ones who have the tools to hurt people and take lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And
And all I could think
going in,
was,
and going into a situation, you're not knowing,
right,
what abilities or lack thereof that this person has. It
right,
does. It puts you and as well as your job and how you react to
right.
the situation in the spotlight. So how did you learn how to, because I know it's difficult because, like you said, in situations like that, someone's not listening to you, they're defying your commands. I mean, at that point, you do want to gain control,
Right.
and not knowing them, how do you take a step back? How do you, as you say, look at things, in a different perspective?
You get some training, because when we get in those situations, we always revert back to our training.
Yeah.
And you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
If nobody's taught it to you, you don't know.
True.
But, another thing, and carrying the Matthews situation even further, I down the road learned that many times they are hypotonic, where their muscles are not fully developed,
Right.
specifically in their chest.
Right.
So if you finally get handcuffs on him and put him face down, and you're trying to get your breath, what's he having a problem doing while he's laying there face down?
Exactly. Breathing. Yep.
Positional asphyxiation.
Yep.
So that my thing about going out there and training officers is, it got to the point where if I go and start to interact with somebody, a lot of times I can pick up on some behaviors. I'm like, okay, well, this may be autism or some type of disability. But giving the officers that information, it's been amazing, because, cops, we're a tough crowd to teach. Because a lot of cops think, you don't do what I do, you haven't seen what I've seen,
Yeah.
you can't teach me anything. And I've been to classes before, and I remember one out in the Shenandoah Valley. I had about 60 officers there, and I know, looking on paper, Alzheimer's, autism, they're sitting there, boy, this could be a long day.
Right.
And I walked in, I said, how many of y'all looking forward today? And they say, well, it couldn't be any worse than yesterday, because the attorney was in here talking about legal updates.
Wow.
I said, you're gonna be surprised. And you could see as I was teaching, those out there who had been officers for a little bit, the light bulb was going off, and they were remembering that call they went on, and that person they interacted with was doing a lot of stuff I'm talking about.
Yep.
And they realized I was dealing with somebody who probably had autism.
Yeah.
So that's my goal of my training. I don't go into the medical aspect of any of it. Mine is kind of trying to understand some of the behaviors you may see,
Right.
and how to interact positively,
Yes.
as not to make the situation any worse. So again, you don't know what you don't know. If you haven't been told these things, you're not going to pick up on them when you're out there on a call and dealing with somebody who is on the spectrum.
Yeah.
It's always good to know when you go into the situation. That's why I always try to tell parents and caregivers, you need to disclose the information.
Yeah.
Most people, agencies, you can put information in a computer system so that if fire, EMS, or law enforcement respond to the house, they can be told by the dispatchers, there's somebody with autism in the house. They don't like loud noises, so turn your siren off, or even flashing lights.
I agree.
So, it was just self-educating myself by going to classes, but also going out and interacting with people who are on the spectrum or dealing with disabilities.
Right. Well, let me ask you, I mean, considering, the climate right now, especially relationships with, law enforcement and people in the community.
Right.
I know that they contend with a lot of situations like that. And you mentioned earlier, you're looking at this young man at 25 years later,
Right.
when he's still dealing with this, and yet he's even more curious, and yet he's bigger and he's stronger, and he's going to be around people, and obviously, not too many are kind or compassionate, and
Right.
you could have a situation where a police officer is called in.
Right.
How important is it to teach these officers how to deal in those situations? Because again, a lot of times, we're about thinking first or
Right.
reacting first before
Right.
thinking about what the situation is. And like you said, I think earlier, it's like taking a step back. You have to sit back
Right.
and sort of examine the situation before you proceed. But how important, especially now in this volatile world that we're in, how important is it that these officers learn this skill? Number one. Number two, build a stronger relationship with
Right.
people in the community, as well as holding the caretakers responsible for sharing this information as well, so that they're way ahead of the game if they're ever called into a situation.
Yeah, I think getting officers to go through some training, but also realizing that most of the things we do in law enforcement, time is on our side.
Mm,
When you pull up, evaluate what's going on, and try to take it all in,
right.
and try to work your way into dealing with the situation instead of just jumping in sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, time is on our side, so why not use that time? Listen to the parents. And yeah, a lot of parents, I can go out there all day long and train officers how to interact with people with disabilities, but the parents also need to teach their kids how to interact with us,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you have a lot. I had a gentleman actually walk up to me that I could tell something was different, but
Mm,
he walked right up and stood right in front of me, and he touched my, he pointed to my, he said, "That's your gun, that's your magazines, that's your pepper spray, that's your taser." But teaching them to not come up and invade our space,
mm-hmm.
just the proper ways to interact with law enforcement.
Right.
So it's a full circle. Everybody needs that understanding.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was getting out there and meeting people. And, as a law enforcement officer, I was trying to do things in that community that I would have. And when I first started running the program, we were having parties for individuals with autism and other disabilities. I had these inflatable party places.
Right. Uh-huh.
They would tell me I could have it for free, have the place for free, and I would send invitations out to all the families that I was working with, and say, "Come on up here." We'd have deputies come in, and we would play with the kids. My kids were there helping serve pizza,
Wow.
and the
That-
families were able to go in a room and sit and have pizza and interact and network with one another.
Right.
But and since about a year and a half ago, I've got my consulting business, a better understanding.
Mm-hmm.
But and the reason I came up with that for my name was because I found myself in classes teaching, and I was constantly saying, "I'm trying to give you a better understanding of what this," and that's what I named it. And
Mm-hmm.
about a year and a half ago, I've had a couple autism moms come up to me and say, "You need a nonprofit."
Yeah.
I don't know anything about a nonprofit, but we have got a nonprofit up and running, and it is
Nice.
a better understanding is also the name of that, but it's a better understanding.org.
Okay.
I've got a mental health worker, Kelly Kramer, who's the president of our nonprofit. I'm the vice president, but Kelly's a mental health worker, single mom, and she actually has two children on the spectrum,
Nice.
a 23-year-old and a 26-year-old.
Wow.
But what we started doing a little over a year ago is, my podcast was going and we were getting some viewers, and we wanted to start having events for people with what I call differabilities.
Mm.
Everybody has abilities, but sometimes people do things a little bit differently.
I like that. Diffabilities. Okay. I like it.
So we had a Christmas party in 2021
Right.
for people with diffabilities. We don't care the age. Alzheimer's is a diffability.
Right.
And we had a Santa Claus come. Moose Lodge here donated the location. So
Oh,
we had a Christmas party.
right.
Just presents. Mechanicsville Rotary here actually paid for all the presents. We had presents for everybody that showed up. And the Santa Claus at the end of it, Santa told us, he said, "I don't want to get paid."
Wow.
It's like, "You were here for 5 hours." He said, "I don't care." He said, I had a little training on disabilities, but not much. but this has really
Wow.
impacted me. So I
Mm.
have my own Santa Claus now. And last fall, I was actually doing a class at the Richmond Police Academy, an all-day class for DCJS, and then I had to head to Hampton.
Right.
But Santa Claus actually came to my class,
Oh, that's so
and
nice.
he came last summer. We had a dance party at a park for people with disabilities. Kona Ice pulled up. We had a DJ. We had food. We had crafts, and people were coming up saying, "We can't believe y'all are doing this because
Wow.
there's nothing for our family member or the people in the group home. We don't have anywhere to take them to do anything."
Yeah. Yeah.
So this past Christmas, we actually, we had the website up and going, the betterunderstanding.org, and we asked families to register. I'd love for everybody to check it out, see what we're doing.
Yes.
But you registered and you let us know who was coming and who had the disability, and we wanted to know what they wanted from Santa.
Mm.
So the Road Mechanics for Rotary donated the money again, but past year, we had this big party, and a lot of these individuals have never had the opportunity to visit with Santa Claus.
Wow.
They can't go to the mall and deal with the lines.
Yeah.
And so some of them had never been able to visit with Santa.
Yeah.
Well, we called each one up individually to sit with Santa and Mrs. Claus, and he
Mm-hmm.
gave each one of them a gift they had asked for. And
Oh,
we had a woman who was 62 years old. The only thing she wanted was a baby doll,
wow.
and Santa gave her a baby doll.
Wow.
So it's,
All
like I
ages.
said earlier, what's
It
that?
was all ages.
All
That's
ages.
amazing.
Again, these are the individuals that never had people show up for their birthday parties and
Yeah.
never got invited. So
Yeah.
our goal with a better understanding is to have these events and have these parties for them.
Right. I love it.
And the parents are
Celebrating
very
them
appreciative.
and celebrating
And
them and
yes,
letting them know that you see them. I love that, Tim. So in you giving these parties and basically what you're doing is bringing awareness
right,
to which I think is far more important than anything.
right,
Have you gotten a lot of support since you started this? Because again, you said that, people were telling you that they've never experienced this before. They've
right.
never had anything
We're getting
before
some
there.
business and stuff contributing money. We're having an event June 1st here in Richmond for the Richmond Flying Squirrels baseball team. They're
Okay.
a minor league team for the San Francisco Giants. Actually, they're having a Hanover County night with for the Rotary, and ABU, a Better Understanding, is actually one of the ones that will receive some of the benefits from the event. There are a few
Mhm.
in there. Hanover Safe Place, I believe, for battered women's shelter. But we're looking for any sponsors or funding, because we want to be able to keep having these parties
Yeah.
and events for these individuals because they matter.
Yes. You're
They
absolutely right.
matter. And one thing I think is absolutely amazing, and back being a police officer, was having officers trained up to where when they did respond to a call, a lot of these families don't want to call 911
Yeah.
because they think they're going to be judged.
Yes.
And they figure most police officers, when police officers show up, they usually show up 2 and 3 cars. Do we really want those sitting in front of the house?
Yeah.
And usually when they show up, they take somebody with them.
Mm-hmm.
So when these families really end up calling 911, they're in a crisis.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to have an officer come in with a gun and a badge, or even your EMTs come in and be able to talk to the parents, caregivers intelligently about what they're doing, the stemming. Okay,
Yeah.
what are their fixations? What are they like?
Yeah.
If you know what the child or adult's fixation is, you know, start talking about it, and we're going
Exactly.
to draw them in, and then you may be able to ask other questions.
Yeah.
But most of them are fixated on certain things. They will always have a particular item with them, or always want to talk about a certain topic. But
Right.
knowing all that information, and I can tell you, getting out there and just meeting individuals, specifically with autism,
Right.
if you have one negative encounter with somebody with autism as a law enforcement officer, that's going to stick with them for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
every time they see that uniform,
Yeah.
they're going to think about what happened, that pain or whatever. So my thing is, get out there and meet them
Yeah.
and interact with them.
Yeah.
Let them become familiar with you so that when you do show up during that crisis,
Yeah.
you're not just another strange thing that showed up to change the whole situation. They may
Exactly.
be familiar with you. So, and it's all, I've said it over and over. When I was sworn in as a police officer, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know where it would go in my career. But in essence, I was sworn in to protect all populations, not just any particular population,
Exactly.
but everybody.
I
And the
love
best way to be able to protect them and serve them is to understand what's going on.
Exactly. I love that. You are absolutely right about that. And I feel that that honestly was your calling. I always speak here on the show about people uncovering their gifts. And I think that was your gift, you know, your ability to understand, to have compassion towards the situation, knowing that you're in this job, this position
Right.
that, you know, serving the community was doing initially for a paycheck, but you found
Right.
something in it that you could actually share and help build others up, and you know, share that with the world and let
Right.
them see how important it is that they see these people that they are walking amongst every single day. And I'm sure a lot of people interact. I was mentioning to someone earlier that, you know, some don't even realize that I'm doing it, but I could be behind someone, you know, out online, and they're taking their time, and I'm hoping that they hurry up, and you know, thinking that there's nothing wrong with them, and I'm getting impatient. But then as soon as you hear them speak, then you realize it. And then I feel awful for
Yeah.
doing it. But you
Well,
know,
at least you feel awful for doing it.
yeah, no, I do.
Some
I
people
do.
wouldn't care.
But it just
Well,
means that I need to slow down, you know, and you
yeah.
cannot press upon others what your expectations of them should be, you know?
Right. And
Like,
I'll tell you, since
yeah.
I have been blessed, and I feel like this was put in my path since I retired. I've got another job. I'm working for a grocery store chain
Mm-hmm.
that they're building a distribution center here right in the county where I am.
Okay.
And I haven't got permission to say the name of the store, but it starts with a W. And
It might be my favorite one. Go ahead.
and through the interviews and everything, I have never seen an organization care so much about their employees in my life.
Wow.
And they're big into diversity and inclusion.
Mm.
And I was in Rochester for the whole month of February for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
at their original distribution center up there. And they hire a lot of people with different abilities, and they embrace them.
Nice.
And, you know, I have been absolutely amazed at this company. And I could not have found a better place to be. And I'd like to see, you know, I'll be working asset protection, keeping the place secure,
Right.
bringing the trucks in and getting them out and all. But just to see what they're already doing with the inclusion and working with people with different abilities.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the plan is or what may happen, but I know I'm in the right place.
You're in the right place for right now. Oh
Yeah.
my God. Congratulations to you, my
Thank
friend.
you.
Now, you mentioned earlier, and the title of our show is A New Perspective. You actually
ma'am.
have a podcast called A New Perspective with Tim Sutton.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
yeah, time is winding down. Tell us real quick about the show, how it came about, and the people that you're meeting and you're serving and you're helping.
Yeah, the whole point of A New Perspective is to bring people on who are making an impact in the disability community, whether they have a disability. I've got a kid in Fredericksburg, Joey Fry. You can check him out. He's got a site, Autism by Joey.
Okay, Autism by Joey.
He's got autism. He has an art studio, and I had him and his mom on there. He was telling me about some of his paintings. Believe it or not, I had last season Jay Allen, who's a country singer, was on The Voice.
Aww.
And was on Blake Shelton's team there at the end. But he had written a song because his mother got diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease at 51.
Oh, wow.
And passed away at 54. And
Wow.
he's got a couple songs out there, and he's actually getting ready. I mean, he's traveling all over the country now, but he came on and told his story. Dave Stevens, a gentleman I'd never met, but you and I both know Anthony Griffo Productions.
Yes.
He's my engineer. He put me onto this guy, Dave Stevens, who was born with no legs, no hips.
Wow.
And he played high school football, basketball, and wrestling. Played college football and baseball.
Right.
And ended up being a sports commentator for ESPN for 20 years. So I had him on the show to talk about his different, and just bringing people on who, a couple local places out here that are doing things, sports things for people with different abilities, and anybody and everybody I can get out there just to show what they're doing.
Right.
Yuri Williams out in California, I actually picked up on him on Good Morning America.
Oh, wow.
He dresses up in costumes, superhero costumes, and he's just finished going through all 50 states for the third time, visiting people who are sick or have disabilities. I turned on television. There he was with Dwayne Johnson and Michael Strahan, and I sent him a message right after, and he responded. So I actually was able to bring him on the show. So yeah, check it out there. It's on all platforms out there. A New
Yeah.
Perspective, hosted by Tim Sutton, and I'm getting ready in the next couple of weeks start up season 3. You can see some of my shows on my website for my consulting. It's tim-sutton.com. The videos page has got some of the shows, but with the new job and everything, a different type of schedule, I'm trying to orchestrate getting back in here in the studio and doing some more shows.
Excellent.
So,
Excellent.
keep your eyes open for them.
Yes, we will, my friend. Yes, we will. Now, again, we were mentioning, how to get law enforcement and the community to work better together. Now, we have crisis intervention. Tell us about crisis intervention and what should we do? What should we do as the community moving forward to help you guys?
I would reach out to have individuals they're passionate about it, or have a family member. Reach out to your local public safety departments and say,
Okay.
hey, how do you train your officers?
Right.
Because this kind of training, I think it's only mandated in 6 or 7 states in the United States.
Yeah, I believe
Virginia, it's not mandated training. So law enforcement, most of them don't get it. And you can tell them, look, turn them on to me to get some information. I'm going in the studio tomorrow to shoot a training video for a company on supervisory stuff. But I've done 2 training videos, 3-hour autism, 3-hour Alzheimer's for a company, the Training Response Network.
Okay.
And agencies can actually purchase the training for their officers where they don't have to bring them into a classroom. They can pull it up on the computer in the cars and go through the training.
Right.
So the training is available, whether
Okay.
it's me face to face, we can work that out, or the Training Response Network has online training that the agencies can purchase.
Right.
But in my career, I've never had to pull the trigger on anybody.
Thank
I
God.
never wanted to,
Right.
and because that means the gun's pointed at me.
Yeah.
But I feel like, and I've always felt like, if I thought my life or somebody else's was in danger, I think I could pull the trigger.
Right.
But that's one of those things you don't know until you've actually done it.
Exactly.
But if I took somebody off of this planet and ended their life because I misinterpreted the behavior
Mm-hmm.
and realized that they really weren't trying to hurt me, that's something I've got to live with for the rest of my life. And I don't want any officer to ever have to go through that.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
training.
that's kind of why I do what I do.
Yeah. And I think that is so important. And I think the training is so important for that reason alone. You don't want to make the mistake, and hurt and harm or kill someone when it could have been avoided by just taking a moment to assess the situation, getting to know, what that person really needs, what their needs and concerns are at that moment. Because like you said, all you have to do sometimes is just ask questions.
Yeah,
So,
and the CIT, the crisis intervention training, it deals a lot with mental health. Well,
Right.
autism is not a mental health disorder. Alzheimer's is not either. However, many times the way you interact with them is similar to individuals who are going through a mental health crisis. And people with autism, Alzheimer's may have a mental health issue.
exactly.
My agency actually incorporated me to come in, do 2 hours during a 40-hour class of
Mhm.
CIT, but I think that needs to be incorporated across the country. Any crisis intervention training, you need to touch on the Alzheimer's, dementia, as well as the autism and other intellectual disabilities, developmental disabilities.
Yes, I agree. I so agree, Tim. I thank you so much, my friend, for being here. You have been a wealth of
course.
information. I hope you guys out there visit his website. Please put up his information. And you said your website is what again?
Tim-Sutton.com.
tim-sutton.com. And the website for the org.
Is a betterunderstanding.org.
Excellent.
Go
Excellent.
on there, register, just keep up with what we're doing. If you want to reach out to us, I'm actually going to South Hill, Virginia in a month. I've got a nonprofit, Families Embracing Autism Together, have asked me to come down there for a second time.
No
They're
way.
getting some public safety officers together, so I'll be doing a 4-hour training. for them.
OMG, my mom is in South Hill, Virginia. You got to tell me when you're going to be there.
Oh,
I might
wow.
have to make a special trip just so I could see that. Oh,
That would
my God,
be
Tim,
awesome.
that is so cool.
May
Well,
20th,
May 20th.
from 9 to 1.
All right. All right. I think I'm going to look into that. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for being here. Please don't go anywhere. We're going to get real quick to the Dare to Be You.
All right.
And the Dare to Be You is: there is no greater disability in society than the inability to see a person as more. And that's exactly what Tim has expressed to us today. Take a moment, look at the situation, look at the person, try to dig deeper into what's going on. It may be something so simple and you don't want to jump to conclusions, so to speak. So let's be mindful of the people around us and what their disabilities may be and how we can help them and be a more care and concern and be more considerate for them and their disabilities. So Tim, I'd like to thank you so much for being here. Is there anything you'd like to share in the last 20 seconds we have left?
Just check the websites out, and just keep in mind, those invisible disabilities that like you said, being in line and wondering what's taking so long, and then come to find out that, yeah, maybe that person has a disability. So just be patient and understanding with them. And as I close out all my shows, for my dad, he's dealing with Parkinson's and dementia related to Parkinson's.
Aww.
He's having a rough time. And he used to watch the show constantly, but as I close my other ones, Dad, I love you. Thanks for watching.
Yep, Dad, I love you. I thank you for watching. I love it so much. I do. Well, again, my friend, you, as I mentioned, a wealth of information. Any people out there, especially if you want to be an officer or if you are in law enforcement, please check out whatever videos you need to, whatever seminars and workshops.
Reach out to me.
Yes, reach out to Tim as well. But find out how you can build a better relationship with your community, especially with the disabilities, the people in the community who have disabilities, as well as the community. Like you said earlier, Tim, we also have to be responsible for sharing that information with law enforcement. I think it would make a lot of us feel a lot safer when anything does arise, just in case, All right. Again, I'd like to thank you so much. I want you guys to tune in, not next week, but the following Tuesday. Next Tuesday, I will be at the Gandhi King Season for Nonviolence event, but I will be coming back to share everything that I experienced there. And I know it's going to be amazing. And it's still time for you to get tickets. So please take advantage of it. It is something that you do not want to miss. Tim, you will be back on the show very soon because, we've got so much more to talk about. But I want you guys to have a wonderful week. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Our Unity. Please remember that peace and love is in the palm of our hands. Let's go out there and be some love, give some love, and share some love. We will see you in 2 weeks. Have a wonderful night. I love you guys. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Strong Island Entertainment.